Hey Flosstube, it's Kim, aka Spartan Stitcher on Instagram, back with another weekly cross-stitching update. This is Flosstube number 72, and today is the 8th of June, 2020. Another week of stitching, and I actually have 6 pieces to show you today. There's not a ton of progress on any of them, but that's because there's 6 of them instead of my normal, 3. So, what did I work on this week? Well, last week I was already working on the Santa Sampler by Cooler Design Studio. Again, the link for this off their website as a PDF or a chart will be down below. And I started top center, so I'm working on this one right here, this top Santa. I put in, I think, 1,800 more stitches after the video last week. So I finished all the cross stitches for that motif. And so all I have left is the back stitching. The banner was a bit of a pain because there are some fractional stitches in there to make it easier for once I backstitch the Merry Christmas across it, to have the backstitch sit nicer on it. So it wasn't just a simple fill it in. There was, checking all the time where are the fractionals and are they going this way or that way. But the rest of Santa was fun. I did have to frog a little bit from what I showed you last week. I had done all the green on the top, and one of those is blended. There are some blends in this. I think there's only 3 symbols that are blends in this design. And I had mixed up some numbers instead of, because one of the greens by itself is 991, and there's 562, and then the blend is 911 and 562. So when I glanced at it, I thought it was just the 2 blended together, but it's not. It was a totally different one. So I frogged out the wrong colors and added that, and then did all the rest of the crosses in this one. So next time I pick this up, I will finish the back stitching on that motif and continue on. And of course, there's other Santas coming up into it, so that's why there's open spaces. Again, this is 28 count Lugana in Mercedes by not Mercedes, Gingerbread in Picture This Plus. A couple of years ago, like 2017, I bought a yard of 28 count Gingerbread and a yard of 32 count Mercedes, so I have to remember which one's which. And then I added the June Familiar for the Catalog of Witches Familiar Sal. I told you last week that it is a dog-like familiar after a Greyhound. So I couldn't quite get them done in one day, so I did it in about a day and a half. Plus I added some more border. So that is the Canis Familiar. This is 32 count Lugana in Murky by Picture This Plus. And let me bring him up closer. So again, a Greyhound familiar, or dog-like familiar, because they are loyal, protective, playful. They can keep away evil spirits, which is what he's doing here. And then he's got some sigils and protective things on his collar. And I told you that Greyhounds are special to my heart because we used to have a retired racing Greyhound that we adopted when we lived in Phoenix. There did used to be a Greyhound racing track there in Phoenix. Most of the tracks have since closed across the country. November 2018 for Election Day, as of that time, there were 17 active Greyhound tracks remaining in the country. And on that election day, the state of Florida passed an amendment to close all their Greyhound tracks by the end of 2020. Again, this was the end of 2018 that they voted for this. So they had 2 years to close their tracks. Well, now we have the pandemic, so Greyhound racing stopped for a long time, and so some of those tracks in Florida, I wouldn't say they're closing even sooner, but the dogs are looking for homes even sooner than they would be. And out of those 17 active tracks that we had the end of 2018, 11 of those tracks are in Florida. So that means there are a lot of Greyhounds looking for homes. Now, it's very hard to find a Greyhound breeder to buy a puppy. You do not want a Greyhound puppy. We had to go through some classes before we adopted our Greyhound, and they said Greyhound puppies are like Tasmanian devils. They're just absolutely crazy. Once they get to be adults, they're such sweet dogs. You know, they zoom around for maybe 5 minutes a day, and then they're couch potatoes. They're 40-mile-an-hour couch potatoes. They can still get in some trouble because they, you know, if you adopt a retired racing Greyhound, they've never been in a home. They most likely have never been up and down steps. They don't know that any food they can't reach is theirs from everything they know. So they need a lot of help to adjust to living in a home. But they're absolutely wonderful. And you guys know that I have Hopper, and you would think that a high prey dog would not be okay with cats and other small animals. Well, if you go look at the rescue groups, they do test the dogs for cat friendly or not. And so when we adopted Kodo, is his name, or what we called him anyways, it was under a trial period to make sure that he was okay with Hopper. We did try adopting other Greyhounds, and within a day we knew they wouldn't work because their prey drive was too high and they just wouldn't leave. They would stand outside Hopper's cage and just stare at him and want to go for him. Whereas Coda couldn't care. Even with Hopper flying around, didn't care. And Coda was so sensitive to a negative word that I could stop him from a dead run. Like, I'd take him to the barn with me, and they say never let a Greyhound off a leash. Well, he was in the barn, the whole barn area and the arena was also in a chain link fence, so everything was fenced. So I'd let him loose around with me, and he'd start to go after a rabbit. This is in Phoenix. I'd say no. He'd come right back to me. So again, each dog is different. We did lose Coda in 2014. September 2014. He was 9.5 years old. We got him early 2008. So we had him about 5 years, and he was just wonderful. This is a artist drawing from a picture that I had of Coda. So we paid an artist to, look at the picture and turn it into a drawing. So he was a brindle boy. And just an interesting factoid, racing Greyhounds are never taught their registered names, their racing names. So it doesn't matter what they're calling them at the rescue, because chances are they don't respond to it yet, unless they've been there for a long time. Because if you think about it, while a Greyhound is racing and you've got people standing at the rail going, come on so-and-so, come on so-and-so, you don't want the fans distracting the dogs. If the dog knows its name and is like, someone's calling my name. So the dogs are never actually taught to respond to their registered names. So his registered name was something completely different. But that's my boy. That's my Greyhound. And so that's why the Kindred Familiar was special to me. And then after that, I was looking to work on something else. And right about that time, my neighbor, who is the one that bird sits Hopper when we go on vacation, and we bird sit their little green cheek conure chippy that I've shown in the videos once. She's a fan of other animals as well. Very passionate about animals, and she asked me if she had found the picture of the Riolis kit of the hedgehog. And she said, hey, if I pay you, will you stitch this for me? I said, sure, but before you decide on that, you should, go look on Etsy because there's tons of other hedgehog patterns. And then I went on my computer because even a couple weeks ago, I found a hedgehog pattern that I knew she would like, and I had saved it. It was one of those where I checked out the magazine digitally from our base library through RB Digital. So I had saved that pattern, and I showed it to her, and I said, I already have this one, and here's what the size would be, and here's, different ways I could finish it, or, go look on Etsy and look at these other ones. So she decided to go for the one that I already had, which was from Cross Stitch Crazy, April 2020. The designer is Cheryl of Tiny Modernist, and it's just a little design. I think it was like 32 by 43, so it's small. I already finished stitching it. I was hoping to have it fully finished to show you today, but ran into a snag after I went to Hobby Lobby to see what they had. She wanted it stretched over an artist canvas, which is, really simple, easy way, quick way to finish something. They didn't have the 4x4 that I needed. The 4x4, that the frame was like this thick. It was almost 2 inches thick, so I didn't have enough fabric margin to be able to stretch that around the frame and staple it. So I got a 5x5, which meant it doesn't fit exactly in the center. And so I'm going to backstitch on a quote that she asked me to add. So I have I'll show you kind of what it'll look like. So I've got it wrapped around the block right now. So that is the design by Tiny Modernist. And then I'm going to backstitch at the bottom something about why don't they just share their hedge, is just like a cute little pun that she told me because it's a hedgehog. Why don't they just share their hedge? So I'm going to chart that and make sure it's centered on this guy, stitch it on there, and then fully finish it. So really cute little, this is a 5x5 block. Cute little piece from my neighbor. And then after that, I had some spare time, so spare time on the same day. So I caught up on my 52 Weeks of Blackwork Sal by Peppermint Purple. The fabric again is it Cauldron Bubble by Color Cotton from their Halloween box last year. So I did those bottom 4 blocks below the quote and then did some more border. So there's a month worth of catching up on that one. And then yesterday, I didn't know what to work on. I knew I should work on McIntosh Mill, but I didn't really feel like working on it. So I have decided that for McIntosh Mill, this Waisaki kit by Dimensions, I'm going to move to a working on it a little bit every day, like 150 stitches every day. If I do that the rest of the month, I'll get over 3,600 stitches on it. And of course I'm doing a little bit more than 150, but minimum 150. So hopefully I can get a part done for June on McIntosh Mill. So I haven't done any stitching today yet because we went into town. Excuse me. But I did put about 165 stitches in it yesterday. I finished up the other shutter here on the pie stand. Took the same color up here. Shutters for those windows. And then it's hard to see, but there's some white stitches here on the gable over the door. And then white stitches, there's a, it's like a door that's split in two where the top half is open and there's going to be a guy standing there under the black. And then there's white. The white bottom half of the door is closed. So we'll work on this a little bit every day for the rest of the month. See how I like that. Just because I was procrastinating from stitching yesterday because I didn't really feel like working on this. but I knew that I should. So hopefully 150 stitches every day will be easy, get it out of the way, work on something else. So the something else that I picked up yesterday night, here's the picture I forgot last week. Kindred Spirits by Jody Bergsma. I have pages 1 through 3 done, and I'm starting this first page on the second row to start doing diagonal pages. Again, I didn't get much done. I think it was 160 some stitches on this too. I was just occupied with other things yesterday. So there you go. Start to the page. Not much there, but that's a start. There is quite a bit of background on this page, first page of the second row. So it's one of those like, okay, the first, that first section of background, I can follow a color pretty well, but then it goes into the mane and neck of the gray horse. So it's like what works well to do a color on the top part of the page does not work well to do a color on the bottom part of the page. So it may not be one complete color over the whole page at first. I may have to do it in stages to get that page done. So those are the 6 pieces I worked on this week. For my plans, like I said, McIntosh Mill, Kindred Spirits. I have to finish up the page on Big Red Ship of Life by Ink Circles. And maybe Templar Prophecy would come out this week. Maybe some of my other full coverage pieces, because I have like 7 or 8 parks in work now. Because I started a park on Kindred Spirits, and I started a park on McIntosh Mill, plus all the partial parks that were done from Page Finish Mania. So, however, there are some events coming up in Full Coverage Fanatics. There's a reason why I'm not in a rush to get those parks done. And most of those will take care of themselves in July, which we haven't announced yet. But in June, the weekend of summer solstice, the 19th through the 21st of June, we are doing a Midsummer Night Stitch weekend. So a little play on words from the Shakespearean play Midsummer Night's Dream. So it's a no count challenge. You can do however much or little that you want, but it has to fit. Your project has to fit in some way to something Shakespeare related. So whether it's fairies for Midsummer Night's Dream, flowers for, in Romeo and Juliet, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Anything royalty related for all his royal plays. Anything that you can think of. Whether it's related to Shakespeare, his life in general, or any of his works, his plays, his sonnets, anything. So for that weekend, I'm going to be working on a summer ball because it's Regency England. So England, Shakespeare's English, and everything that he wrote about England. So I'll be working on a summer ball for that weekend. And then we'll see when we announce what we're doing for July. July is kind of different because originally we were planning something to go along with the Olympics, but since that was postponed until next year, we came up with a different idea. So we hope that you'll like it when we do finally announce it. I might also be starting soon the piece that I'm going to try out, the 28 count, easy count, that I showed you last week or the week before. I bought the 2 yards. So I'm probably going to be starting that piece soon, which, is going to be Card Sharp by Omar Rayan. And this is a piece that I actually won Christmas 2018 time, when one of the moderators from the Heaven and Earth group, Scotty Campbell, was being the Haid Fairy. And there was different things, like every day there was a different post, and you could enter to win a rack for every day for 12 days for the Higg Christmas fairy. So this is the one that I happened to win. This is enormous. It is 625 by 800. Just to let you know, Trick or Treat that I have is also 625 wide, and Trick or Treat is 890. So Trick or Treat is only slightly bigger than this one. So it's going to be ginormous. It's not going to look as big because it's going to be on 28 count instead of 25 count. So it will fit on the same size frame as Trick or Treat and Kindred Spirits. And I'm going to start top left because of the dark corner up here. There is a decent amount of black and other dark colors up there. But as I get to work stitching on this, I don't know if I'll do pages across because it would take me forever to get to the fun part. So, really cool piece of art by Omar Rayan. He's the same guy that did Contessa with Squid and The Favorite. So, okay. Air Force story time. If you're not interested, we'll see you next week. This happens to be like the dog video because everything is dog related. As my dog just groans down here. She had to join me today. Okay, so March of last year, 2019, my husband was contacted from one of his friends who happens to live like kitty corner across the street from us. A lot of the B-52 pilots, not say a lot, some of them also maintain their private pilot's license, even if they don't own a plane. Pretty much at most small airports you can rent planes for the day. You just gotta pay for gas and pay some other fees. So this friend of ours contacted my husband and say, hey, I'm planning this flight and I need some help. Would you be willing to come with me? And what the flight was to fly from here to Fargo, which is normally a 4-hour drive. Takes about half of that in a Cessna. And it was the first leg of 4 legs to take a retiring military working dog and transport her to one of her former handlers, who I think now lives down in Iowa. So 4 legs to get from where we're at in North Dakota over to Fargo. I don't know if they were then going to Minneapolis and then down south. I don't know what, all 4 legs, but the first leg was from here to Fargo. So retired military, like just retired, brand new military working dog. They went and picked her up from the security forces guys here on base and took her to the airport. And so my husband was acting, he doesn't have his private pilot's license, but of course he flies all the time. So he can help out if there was an emergency. He knows everything you need to know as to how to fly the Cessna, but also an extra pair of hands to handle the dog. A Cessna, the inside of it, there is, 2 people sit in the front and there's a back seat, but it's even smaller inside than what you normally see in a regular sedan, a regular car. And I'll show you pictures here, but pretty sure the dog was a Belgian Malinois. That's her in the back seat of our truck. When they went to pick her up. And here's a picture flying over North Dakota. Still some snow on the ground. Again, that was mid-March last year. And see, there's not many trees. There's hardly any trees in North Dakota. And where's the other picture? Oh, there we go. I blacked out my husband's face. But, so you can see, here's our friend, the pilot, and my husband. They're pretty much shoulder to shoulder in the Cessna, with the dog sitting in the back seat, her head coming over. My husband said she was not at all calm. I gave him like a bone for her to chew on, she wouldn't settle. Again, this is a working dog. They're used to going, and having a job. So, and since she had just retired, she wasn't used to being relaxed and lounging around. And just to show you, they had some blankets and dog beds and things in the back seat. When they got back, they had to clean up the plane. That's the inside of the plane. And you can see she chewed up and destroyed the blankets and dog bed. So, she was not at all a calm dog, having just retired. And the other thing my husband said is that she would not respond to commands. And I thought about that. I'm pretty sure it's probably because the commands she knows are not in English. A lot of the military working dogs and police dogs that I've read about or watched TV shows about, they are taught commands in other languages, like German. Again, because if they're catching a criminal, you don't want the criminal to be able to say, sit, and the dog does that. So most likely the dog responds to commands in other languages. So just kind of interesting. It was cool for my husband and his friend to take this military working dog and get her started on her journey back to where she's going to live out the rest of her life. So that was pretty cool. And speaking of my husband, his replacement has arrived at the base, which means we are a few weeks away from him coming home. The guy that got there still has to go through quarantine before he can do anything else. I think it's like 2 weeks of just sitting in a room and can't do anything. So, but we're getting closer. At least he's there. He's on station. So we're counting down the days now. And my husband started mailing stuff home that he couldn't fit in his bags. So we're getting closer. I hope everybody has a good stitching week, and we'll see you later. Bye, guys.